Welcome back, everyone. I'm T,
And I'm Nessa.
and together we are the Casual Fangirls. We are here today to discuss the latest installment of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the movie Thor, Love, and Thunder. This is the 29th film of the MCU, the sixth film in Phase 4, and the fourth in the Thor series. So we are rocking and rolling through the MCU. They are not stopping anytime soon. Taika Waititi returns to direct our favorites Chris Hemsworth, Tessa Thompson, and Natalie Portman as they reprise their roles as Thor, Valkyrie, and Dr. Jane Foster, respectively, with a wonderful performance. Cannot wait to talk about this from Christian Bale as our villain, Gore the God Butcher. At the time of our recording on a beautiful Sunday morning, Thor Love and Thunder is projected to gross around $143 million this opening weekend, with a Rotten Tomatoes score of 68% and an audience rating of 81%. We're going to dig into that a little bit too. But before we jump into it, let's do a spoiler-free version of our thoughts on the movie. Stick around for a more detailed deep dive in a minute. So, my beautiful co-host Nessa, if you could describe the movie in 3 words, what would they be?
So, my first word is fun. You're going to go into this movie, you're going to enjoy it, you're going to have a good time. However you feel about Thor or anything else, you're going to have fun and you're going to enjoy it. If you enjoyed Ragnarok, I would definitely say that you're going to have fun at this one as well. The next one is action-packed. A lot of fighting scenes, especially now that we've got Jane as Thor and we've got Valkyrie in there. There's a lot of battle action, and if that's up your alley, awesome. The last one I had was weak emotional connections. Now, bear with me. I'm gonna make it quick because we're gonna get deeper into it later, but bear with me. It's not necessarily the emotional connections between the characters themselves. It's between myself as a viewer to the characters that we're watching, or to the bonds that they allegedly have or formed or whatever it is. So for me, that part was lacking and that part was weak. So those are my words: fun, action-packed, weak emotional connections.
I mean, Nessa, just say that you didn't care and go. Like,
we're gonna get to it. We're gonna get to it. What about you?
I also think that the movie was really fun. So that was one of my words as well. Like everything you said, it was a good time, plenty of humor. We'll talk more about that in a second. I did feel it was a little scattered. I felt the plot theoretically was easy to understand, but I think to your point about emotions in general, how I was supposed to feel felt all over the place. Trying to understand what the movie was trying to make me feel, like, felt scattered. And then finally, I just thought overall it was enjoyable. Was it what I expected? No. But it was an enjoyable experience anyway. Yeah, so that's your spoiler-free review. All in all, I would absolutely suggest anyone who's an MCU fan, anyone who's a Thor fan, anyone who just wants a good trip to the movie theater, even if you haven't seen all of the MCU to this point, I do think it's worth whatever your local theater is charging to see it, to go see it in person. Maybe not opening weekend, but I do think that it'll be a good time in the theater if you do decide to go. So, all right, let's get ready to use Stormbreaker to launch the Bifrost to the Shadow Realm, where we can explore the power of love. Nessa, let's do a spoiler-free warning before we get started.
Listen, y'all been here before. You know what it is. This is your official spoiler warning. So we will be talking about Love and Thunder, the movie. And pretty much, honestly, anything related to the MCU. Specifically, if you haven't seen any of the movies that the character Thor was featured in, you might want to, be prepared for that. There might be some spoilers in that. So that's going to include Thor, Marvel's Avengers, Dark World, Age of Ultron, Ragnarok, Infinity War, Endgame. If you ain't seen them and they get spoiled, sorry, not sorry. Chances are we're going to spoil something. If you haven't seen Thor, Love and Thunder, definitely go watch it and then come back and join us. All right, T, so let's kick off the recap.
Yeah, so thanks, Nessa, for that. So let's recap the plot real quick to reorient ourselves before we dive in. So the movie opens with us watching Gore, a devout disciple of the god Rapu, with his daughter traversing a desert in search of food and shelter. So Gore prays to Rapu for sustenance for his daughter, his dying daughter, as he tries his best to shield her from the harshness of the desert. Unfortunately, his prayers go unanswered and his daughter dies. Very sad. Not too long after, Gore senses something calling him to a desert oasis and finds his god Rapu, the actual dude he was praying to, there living the cush lavish life as they celebrate killing the latest wielder of the god-killing necrosword. Gore finds out the hard way that his god isn't interested in protecting the people who worship him. As Rapu is about to kill Gore for being insolent, the necrosword infects Gore with a god-killing lust. Gore kills Rapu and vows to end all the gods. I'm pretty sure you can see where we're going with this.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah. Cut to our old pal Korg, who's giving the audience a convenient recap of Thor's story in the MCU, because it's been a long time, so we need to be, brought up to speed. So we're reminded of how Thor's relationship with his family members and Jane have all ended very badly, which is the influence for the Thor that we see today. After the events of Endgame, Thor is back in shape now. He got his god bod happening. He's sworn off love and is running around with the Guardians of the Galaxy, answering distress signals as he's now dedicated his life to helping others. They get a distress signal from Lady Sif, who, we all were like, where you been? Were you dead? What happened? You were in the Ragnarok, but she's out there, y'all. And receives a call from her, and Thor parts with the Guardians to go save Sif, where he learns that Gore is on the hunt to kill all the gods, and his next stop is New Asgard.
So, cut to New Asgard. As Gore is attempting to kidnap the children of New Asgard, he went straight for them. We see our queen, Valkyrie, holding the Asgardians down as their king and fearless leader. I mean, she was busting serious.
King Valkyrie! Long live the king!
Long live the king. Thor shows up to help and is literally shocked speechless when a third hero appears wielding Mjolnir. Thor's hammer that was destroyed by his sister Hela back in Ragnarok. Dr. Jane Foster, if you're nasty, as the mighty Thor, is here with a reforged Mjolnir, and she is kicking ass. We learn through piecing together flashbacks that when Thor and Jane were dating, he unknowingly enchanted the hammer to protect Jane. So when she was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer, Mjolnir called to her and is now providing her with superhuman powers while simultaneously preventing her body from fighting off the cancer, effectively killing her faster. Very sad. Gore successfully kidnaps the children, and our heroes vow to put together a plan to save them.
Their plan? Go to Zeus and ask for help to get the children back. Goes wrong several ways. They travel to Omnipotent City, where all of the best gods hang out, having orgies, the greatest time of their lives. Maybe they get some work done. I don't know. And they're rejected by Zeus immediately on site. Thor attacks Zeus, takes his lightning bolt, and they head to the Shadow Realm to defeat Gore. On the way, Thor confesses his undying love for Jane. She tells him of the cancer, and they agree to work on their relationship, rekindle their love. When they reach Gore, they realize kidnapping the children was a setup to get Stormbreaker so that he can get to eternity to ask for one wish that will absolutely be granted. Gore wounds Valkyrie and Jane, steals Stormbreaker, and after Thor makes Jane promise to stay out of the fight so she can work on healing herself, Thor goes off to confront Gore himself. He gives the children a little bit of his power to help defeat Gore's shadow demons, and while they're busting ass, he goes toe-to-toe with Gore. Jane senses Thor's almost defeat and gets there just in time to save Thor and break the necrosword, breaking the connection with Gore.
At Eternity, because although all that went down, Gore was still able to establish a connection with Eternity and get there. Thor and Jane convince Gore that what he really wants is love, so they encourage him to just ask for his daughter to be returned to him. He does. Jane reaffirms her love for Thor and dies in his arms. Gore then asks Thor to take care of his daughter as he dies in his daughter's arms. Plot twist there. The movie ends with New Asgard being rebuilt, the children being trained by Valkyrie, Korg finding a partner and choosing to have a child, and Thor with his new niece, who was born from eternity with godlike powers, and her name is Love, fighting in a new battle as they work together to save a group in distress as Love and Thunder.
Get it, guys? It's in the title.
It's in the title.
So in the first stinger, we see a bitter Zeus whose son Hercules vows to have Thor killed for humiliating Zeus. In the second stinger, we see Jane being greeted by thankful Heimdall as she arrives to Valhalla, the resting place for Asgardians. And that was the movie, y'all.
That was the movie.
A lot happened.
Yeah.
A lot was explained. But let's start off with T. Did you like this movie?
Enjoyable time. I'm not mad at it. I think this is definitely one of those movies that I can't wait for the 2 to 3 months when it comes out on Disney Plus and we get to watch it again to see how it holds up. I'm not sure how it's going to hold up. I have a feeling it might be really cheesy the second time around we watch it and kind of non-consequential. And I think just generally speaking, the 2 hours I spent in the movie theater was a fun time. But the movie feels non-consequential, or at least I can't piece together why I should care about what happens in this movie as it relates to the broader MCU. And we could talk about this later, but that's kind of one of my current issues. I shouldn't say issue because the MCU has given us such great things, and I'm probably just a spoiled viewer at this point. But we've had so many origin stories, and this is not an origin story for Thor, but there's some origin elements to it that makes it feel like I'm learning a character from scratch all over again. And I'm just exhausted from learning about new characters in phase 4. I just want to like get to them doing something, if that makes sense. So I like to say, like the movie as, like a snapshot in and of itself, great time. But I'm thinking about the bigger picture and I just don't know how it fits in. What about you?
Overall, I feel the same way. I like the movie. I thought the humor was great. I was laughing. Those freaking screaming goats. I know it's like low-hanging fruit comedy, but like it did it for me in so many ways. The jealousy of Stormbreaker to Mew Mew, I thought was so like entertaining and so funny and random, and I didn't see that coming.
That was probably the best bit of the movie, honestly. Yeah.
That was great. It was great to be back with Valkyrie again. Honestly, I loved how they, how you've seen new Asgard grown. Because when we first get there, it's like this. It looks like a poor like fishing village on the coast of Norway. And when we come back in this movie, they've got like cruise ships. They've got tours going on. They are definitely like capitalizing off of everything, right? Off of their celebrity and everything like that. Even like they opened an ice cream shop called Infinity Cones. I was just like, y'all are funny. Y'all doing it up. But then like
they also had Daryl giving tours. Did you catch that?
I caught it afterwards. Like I saw some stuff where they were like, and like I didn't know who he was, but then they gave background on him, and I was like, look at y'all together. And then like Valkyrie doing the Old Spice commercial, and it's like clearly she hates all this stuff, but she knows that it's going to bring wealth to her people, so she's just like, I'm gonna do this. I was very invested in her story and disappointed that she wasn't used more, and I wish they would have. But like the plot itself was pretty like straightforward, like you were saying, and it just, we knew where it was going, we knew what they were doing. There were some details along the way that we'll get more into that kind of took me out of that a few times. And that's where I had my issues. But like you said, it's an enjoyable 2 hours. It's fun. I will definitely go back and rewatch it again. Was it better than Ragnarok? No, but
it was better than Dark World and the original Thor.
In terms of like where we can rank it in phase 4, because at this point, phase 4, we've got Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, and now Love and Thunder. So we've got 6 films out in phase 4, and it's up there for me. I don't know if I would say I liked it better than Shang-Chi or No Way Home, but definitely better than Multiverse of Madness and Black Widow. So it's in the middle there for me somewhere.
Yeah.
Where does it rank for
Yeah.
you for Phase 4?
I would say for Phase 4 specifically, looking at the list of movies, No Way Home is probably still top, just because again, it's
nostalgia.
It's the pop culture of it, right?
Yeah.
Like that sent that movie over the edge. And when it comes to the general MCU, it does do some setup work. It gives us our first instance of multiversal stuff in movies, you know, outside of What If. And No Way Home also gave us like us setting up for a potential new Spider-Man, right? Like the way they ended it, it just has implications for the MCU. Everything else, including Multiverse of Madness does have implications, but they're so unclear right now that I just know. And then Eternal, Shang-Chi, and Black Widow are all origin stories to me, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think I would put Thor. I think I'm with you that it's somewhere in the top 4, probably top 3, with the third one. Yeah, like Shang-Chi, Eternals, Thor, Love, and Thunder, kind of all. No, Shang-Chi and Thor, Love, and Thunder over Eternals. So Shang-Chi and Thor, Love, and Thunder is probably what I'd be switching out. I don't know. But yeah, I liked it. So
it was great. It was great. All right. So let's get into even more details. Let's dive a little deeper.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's talk about Thor and his whole character arc. Do you want to kick this off?
So yes, I do.
Because I know you love you some good character development.
Yes. It's like the two things I just character development, especially of the main characters.
Yeah.
Do we go on a journey with this character and do we care? And then does the plot make sense in the world that we're building, right? Like those are usually my two main sticking points. Plot makes sense, fine. We get to see a new realm, all that other jazz. We could talk more about that in a second. But when it comes to Thor's character development, I don't feel like there was a point A and there was a point B. I don't feel like they fleshed out the journey from point A to point B for Thor. At the beginning of the movie, they made a concentrated effort for us to understand that he is not in the emotional space to want to love anymore. They even had Star-Lord say, you need to learn how to love again. Like, this is something you need to learn how to do. And then I feel like it was a whole lot of action. And then all of a sudden he's on the boat with Jade and he's like, I love you. I want to feel shitty. And I just don't know that we went on the journey with Thor internally for him to say, you know, like, oh no, I really actually do want to do this. We just hear him say it. And it's hard to convey that in movie form, I'm sure, but just some time with him meditating. Maybe he talks to Valkyrie. Maybe he just talks to other people about it before he gets to Jane. And all we have is the dating montage and him just being impressed that she's able to handle Mjolnir to weigh, you know, to actually give that weight. So I just need it more. And I don't know if you know this, but I heard through the grapevine that the original cut of this, like there's a cut that's 4 hours long.
Yeah.
And they like cut it in half. And I'm sure some of those scenes allude to what I'm getting at here. So there's that. And then I'll just say separately that Thor felt sillier in this movie than he's ever felt before. And that was throwing me off a little bit because even in Ragnarok, he was like silly because the situation he was in was kind of silly. But at the end of the day, he buckled up and he like whooped some butt, right? It didn't feel that much of a balance here. I feel like we've like gone full Thor is like the funny jock in class now, and I'm okay with that. I guess it's just different. But I did want to point out to you and just ask, do you think the What If episode with Thor was them prepping us for this?
Party Thor? Yeah, in a sense. Now that you mention it, I think definitely draw some connections there because I don't know if he's this way in the comics. Like if he is very much more like fratty or even in like actual Norse mythology. Like I wonder if he is kind of more of like the party boy kind of thing.
I think so, which is like part of the reason why Loki felt as if he wasn't suitable for the throne. So it makes sense as like a worthy Thor to act like this, but a post-worthy Thor. I mean, with the story they told us of him, yes, like he's been through a lot. He's kind of off. I get that, but it just felt like, okay, like if this is the Thor we're dealing with now for the rest of the MCU, I don't know that I can take him seriously at all.
Yeah, so I think the movie relies a lot on the previous movies, especially like Infinity War and Endgame, to carry out that through line for us. But it's been so long since we've seen Thor that I think it's easy to forget, like, oh yeah, he was depressed and overweight and all these things. And like, but when you're watching Infinity War, when you're watching Endgame, you get the emotional distress so much more than like kind of being dropped into this movie. And then it's like, oh, see, remember what happened was. So I think if they were closer in time, it would have worked better. I think that was the thing. So it's like in the beginning of the movie, he's in this place where he's traveling with the Guardians, and like it seems like the funny thing is he seems like he's trying to make them his new family, but even within that, it still seems like he's an outsider. And like they just kind of call on him when it's like when stuff is hitting the fan.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, we kind of need you now. We was trying to hold it off, but we need you to come through. And he is very much in this place where he's just kind of like trying to let the universe guide him, and he doesn't know who he is and what his purpose is and everything like that. But it feels like we're constantly in that state with Thor, or we're always going in this cycle, which I mean could allude to real life. Okay. Yeah, where it's like, hey, you think you get to this place in life, and then you kind of realize, like, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know where I'm going.
I mean,
I'm lost. Right. And then you're trying to reconfigure things. But I think if we're watching it as a superhero movie, it's like we usually want to see a linear path versus like a loop. Like Tony started off one way and ended off another way, right? Cap started off one way, ended up, and those arcs were so beautiful to watch. That I think to watch Thor going in this loop feels a little chaotic. It feels, and he's constantly trying to figure out how to be a better God. And towards the end of the movie, he's like, oh yeah, I do need love in my life, and I need to figure out how to develop these connections with people and everything like that. Because I'm not even going to lie, like at the end of Endgame, when he chooses to leave New Asgard, I'm like, but why? Like, you just got these people here. Y'all just won the Endgame, won the war against Thanos. And then you're like, Valkyrie, you got this, right? Deuces. Like, these are your people.
At the minimum, he could have just stayed and been like, let me try to make up for me being a slob the last couple of years. Let me stay for like 6 months. Hey, can y'all come back for me in like 6 months? And like he could have done that, and he didn't. You're right.
Right. It was so weird. Like, I just felt like you just went and abandoned your people. And then now Gore is coming through, tearing it up. And then now you popping in like, what's up, y'all? Y'all miss me? And it's like, man, okay, sure. But I mean, there's elements of where they're trying to take this arc, this character development. There's elements of him trying to be better, trying to evolve, but it's not coming together in a way that I would like to see, I think is what it is.
Yeah, and then they just really quickly, before we move on to like how he looks and everything, the question I left the theater with is, they said Thor will return at the end of the movie. In what capacity could he be returning in? Now that he has this like niece, I guess the question is, will she be a character in her own right? Is she going to take over for Thor at some point? Because Chris is not going to play this role forever. Right. Just where do we see Thor fitting in the future? I don't know how this movie is setting us up for that yet.
I was so begging and hoping that, because at the end, sometimes they'll be like, "Oh, Spider-Man will return in this movie." I
Yeah.
was praying that they were gonna put a film there just to give us a roadmap. Just give us a
Yeah.
roadmap. Tell us where
Yeah.
we're going. And they didn't, and I was just like, "But in what?"
No, I think the first time we saw that was with at the end of um Captain America, the first Avenger. At
Mm-hmm.
the end, it said Captain America will return in Marvel's Avengers, which was the next movie that was coming out.
Yeah.
And I think that was when they announced that that was coming out. Well, maybe people knew that that's when like it was like super solidified, and they had the trailer for
Mm-hmm.
Marvel's Avengers right after that. We're probably not going to get that until they've absolutely confirmed what the next team up movie is going to be, and or what the next big bad is going to be.
Yeah. True story. All right, let's get into something a little bit more fun. The
Yeah.
outfits, the fits, the drip, all of it. We definitely got some different and upgraded outfits in this. What was your favorite Thor outfit? Or if you have a couple, what were they?
So I'm just gonna say like Thor. So do you remember when Thor landed and realized Jane was Mighty Thor, and then she had like his mask and he like changed his mask to like be
Yep.
more pronounced? He looked like a Digimon to me. He looked like some sort of Digimon or like Transformer or something. It felt so over the top and
The
so
suited up
grandiose.
gold.
It felt so grandiose,
Yeah.
and I thought it was fitting for like what him trying to one up her, like feeling a way about it.
Yeah.
But honestly, like I didn't really care for it. It felt like too much.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like too much. Like that's the outfit I would expect him to have on if he's going against like Thanos's army, right? Like you're
Right.
leading an army of that size, like suit up and like
Yeah.
all the armor and like all that other stuff. Um, so for something like this that just felt like a more intimate fight, I mean, yes, it was a bunch of shadow demons and stuff, but still more intimate compared to that. It felt like it felt like he overdressed. He felt like the friend who was like the friend's like, oh, we're going to brunch today. And you're like, oh, what are you wearing? It's like, oh, nothing too crazy. Like I'm just something light. And then they
Yeah.
show up and they have on 6-inch stilettos and like all the skin showing. And you're there in like a fucking poodle skirt and some flats, right? Like it's that's what that felt like to
That
me.
overdressed friend.
Right.
I do like the outfit that he initially shows up with at that
Yeah.
battle. That black, almost leather looking with the
Yeah.
fur on the cape.
Yeah.
That was the one.
It was
That was
very
my
Jon
favorite.
Snow, Winter is Coming-esque.
Oh, yes. Good
Yes.
point. I like that. That was very Jon Snow-esque. That's probably why I liked it. Yeah, that was definitely my favorite. And then we get what I would call like hippie Thor, like
Yeah.
his meditating outfit.
Yeah.
That I guess I'm like, bro, there's a battle going on, and he's like on the mountain meditating, waiting for someone to be like, come help. Which I mean, if you think about it, a lot of the gods do that, right? Like
Yeah.
even eternity, right? Eternity is sitting there and like waiting for someone to come ask for something. Zeus and all of them, they're at their place, just chilling, having orgies and whatever, until the people down below are begging for whatever they need and stuff. Uh, Rocker Thor was cool. The leather vest.
That's what he had on underneath the hippie robe, his snuggie.
Yeah. Snuggie.
That's basically what he had on, was a snuggie. Him doing the what's his name? What's the older white dude that was like karate, like Aikido? Who used to do like splits all the time? Started with a V.
I'm not sure.
Whatever. He was in there. Thor was in there doing splits and skinny jeans, and
That was
like
that scene was a little dragged out, but it was kind of
it
funny.
was. It
It was a
was.
little long. I was like, I get it. He's doing the split. He's holding him off.
Yeah, he was. I mean, but they had to build up like him destroying the castle so that they could give him the stupid goats.
Right. Out here
funny.
fighting off angry birds.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I thought the fits were fine.
Yeah.
Generally speaking.
Definitely love the fits. Okay, and we already talked about the relationship to the Guardians, but was there anything else you wanted to kind of add? Because we do see the Guardians for like a nice little chunk in the beginning of the movie. We're
It's
kind of
like
catching
10
up with
minutes.
them. Yeah, it was
Feels
more
like
Guardians than I thought.
it was less Guardians than I thought, honestly.
Really?
I did, yeah. I thought that we would at least get them through the all of Act One, and we didn't.
Really?
Because
I
if you
had
think about it,
like that.
Act One is through the shadow demons coming to New Asgard and then deciding to like that like communal like everyone gathering to like talk about what had just happened. That's probably the end of Act Two. End of Act One, the beginning of Act Two is like when they go to Omnipotent City, all the way through to Thor and Jane being in the hospital, and then after that it's probably Act Three. I thought we would have gotten the Guardians through at least Act One, and then they like go off and do something. So I would just like, I don't even know if they all even had a line.
They did, but maybe not,
one or two lines, but like
maybe not Drax. But
maybe
yeah.
not Drax, but Rocket didn't even say anything particular. Like he commented
He
on
did.
Groot, but I'm used to like commenting on what's happening, not just telling Groot to stop being an asshole.
You
know?
wanted a Guardians movie, girl. This is not.
I wanted to see all their personalities, and I just don't know that we really got that. But it's fine. Like, whatever. It's not their movie, right? But yeah, I mean, they touched really quickly on Star-Lord and Gamora and him still being heartbroken from all that. We don't know where she is. There's none of that development or anything like that. So it feels like I almost don't even know if they really needed to be in the movie, all of them. That's where I'm at with it.
I hear you. They probably didn't, but I think it was good because we haven't gotten that team up movie yet. I think it was good to kind of put us in that place again of like, yes, don't forget they do come together sometimes. So I enjoyed having them around. I enjoyed, and kind of like what I said earlier was like seeing that he was trying to build a new family and still didn't even quite all the way fit in with that family because like they were ready to go. Like he was trying to do the long goodbye. He was trying to dap it up, do all these things, the snake that betrays you, all that stuff. And Star-Lord's like, okay, you take care now. We gotta go.
Yeah.
Right. So, and like Korg is really only his like bestie now, his right-hand man. So
yeah.
So I was happy to have them for the time that we did.
Okay, that's fair.
All right, let's get into Gore, our villain, Christian mother effing Bale.
Christian Bale. Oh my goodness. Christian Bale, I didn't know that I wanted Christian Bale to play Voldemort, but I kind of want Christian Bale to play Voldemort.
The whole movie I'm watching, I'm like,
really?
This is so many Voldemort vibes.
And they actually, so there's been some talk that they reimagined his look so that he didn't look as like, apparently in the comic books, he looks way more like Voldemort.
Yes.
Than he did in the movie. And I was like, yeah, I didn't try that hard because that dude looks like Voldemort's like brother. For real.
Definitely. But it was definitely a great look. Speaking of like, the look and the costuming and everything, very simple but very effective. Like he was scary looking, he was creepy looking when he was popping in on the kids and stuff like that. I was like, I'd be worried too.
he was giving strong like Voldemort, but if Voldemort was best friends with the Joker from the Dark Knight series, like that's the vibes I was getting.
Yes.
Which Christian Bale was in, obviously, so he experienced that firsthand. But it was giving very much like chaotic, like dementia, but so much method behind the madness that it's like you have to respect it at the same time. It was great. It was so great. His performance was fantastic.
Performance was top notch. It was so great that it made me a little disappointed that he actually died. I'm like, he could have been rocking a couple of movies, like especially if you are a god butcher, you could have definitely like ended up in a few movies. That could have been a little team up, but whatever.
Or even beyond that, even if his arc as the God Butcher ended, he feels like someone that could have turned into an anti-hero like Loki.
Possibly.
someone who's just like maybe stays out of it. And she's like, I'm not dealing with anything. Like, I have my daughter back, leave me alone. But then like Thor is like, well, Zeus is coming after me. I know you don't like them people. Do you want to like come do something? And Gore would be like, all right, let's go. Like,
let's do it.
It just would have been nice to see him, kind of like what they did with Zemo, right? Like Zemo,
Yeah.
another villain I like who had a point, who eventually was kind of just like, you know, I have guidelines, I have principles, like, and I don't agree with this, so I'm going to help you. I feel like Gore would have done something similar. But I agree. I felt like killing them was too much. They could have just like severely incapacitated him or something like that. I don't know. But
so do you feel that Gore had a point?
I do. Not for me specifically, but I do think that his point is super relatable.
Yes.
Is really what I think. Like, I'm sure there are millions and billions of people out there who feel like having faith in a higher being or a deity of some sort, they don't feel like that faith has been rewarded in the way that they expect. And I think that, you know, Gore the God Butcher is like the extreme level of atheism, right? And there are plenty of people on the planet who are either atheists, they have their doubts about the whole notion of religion in general, or they do have a faith, but there are definitely times where I'm sure they question their faith and you know, one point or another. So to that end, I thought Gore and the way they set that up was so relatable. So especially when we got to Zeus and the orgies, it's like, oh no, these niggas need to go.
Yeah, because like, I mean, because I think the thing was like Gore understood that, okay, my life is to be sacrificed, you know, for the gods and everything like that. And he was okay with that, but he was like, just save my daughter. Take me as a sacrifice, you know what it is, but like save the children, you know what I'm saying? Save my daughter. And to speak to your point, like I think a lot of people feel like that, where it's like, if there is this higher power out there, or if there are these gods out there, why is it a lot of times when I reach out, when I pray, like I don't feel like I'm being answered, or you know, like you allow all these terrible things to happen, like, you know. And like when you read about a lot of gods from all different types of you know, regions and eras and everything like that, a lot of them do tend to be these self-indulgent beings who are just out here to do what they want and party and have a good time. And I think a lot of the times, so I know you haven't seen the show The Boys, whatever, but a lot of the times it's like we expect them to be the Avengers, but a lot of the, but most of the time what they probably actually would be is the Seven from The Boys, where it's like, I have these powers, I'm good, I'm straight, I'm gonna use it to my benefit and we're gonna have a good time. And it's funny because like as Zeus is talking about the orgies in The Boys, they just had an episode called Herogasm, which
spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Right. Okay. Spoiler alert, but light spoiler. I'll put it that way. They have an episode called Herogasm, which basically a lot of the soups, the heroes get together and they have a big ass orgy. It's like,
sounds like a lot of fun, honestly. Like, if you're a superhero, why not?
I mean,
if you're,
I'll let you watch the episode and you tell me. But yeah,
I mean, I'm sure. Listen, I'm not saying I would do it. I'm saying I can understand why they would do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I
so it's like, I get it. But so I think it speaks to a lot of people's fears of, if I believe, if I do these things, if I stay sturdy in my faith, am I going to reap the benefits? Are my children going to reap the benefits? And to see that hope dashed and shattered, right? Not even just in, damn, we just both died. It's, I found you, my God, and you don't care. You don't give a damn. You're not even worried about it. So it was, I think it speaks to a lot of people's fear, and that's why it can be relatable to a lot of people. So to me, he did have a point where it was like, y'all just worried about y'all not here to help anybody, you're not here to do anything but have a good old time. So when the sword calls out to him, it only makes sense that he's like, y'all all gotta go. right? But also, I think it's important to mention that the sword also corrupts him.
Yes.
So even though his intentions are, I'm still going to kill everybody, it corrupts him and brings out the worst in him. So it even brings him to a place where he's now kidnapping children. So it's not I'm just killing gods, but I'm kidnapping kids.
Yeah, I mean, it means to an end, right? Like he kidnapped the kids in order to set up Thor so that he can get the Stormbreaker to like do all that other stuff. Like I say a lot to say that he probably, I wouldn't jump to say that he's kidnapping kids like in every single realm that he's going to. Like that doesn't feel, and maybe I'm projecting a lot because I want to I want to see the good in Gore. But
he's a villain.
He's a villain, but also he's a villain who had a daughter who he loved. And I was kind of waiting, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a deleted scene or something in like the 2 hours that got cut, of him just being like a little bit, he was menacing to the children because he was angry, obviously, but he didn't actually harm them, which I thought was an interesting, like, I was waiting so much to just see some sort of connection between his love for his daughter and how he treated the children. And to your point, I don't think there was anything like blatantly obvious, so maybe he's fully corrupted, but he also, in my opinion, he kidnapped them, but he didn't hurt them. He totally could have. He totally could have.
He didn't hurt them, but I guess the question also is, would he have let them die too, right? So like if some sort of harm came, would he have just kind of been like, oh well, or would he actually, have tried to protect them? So to me, in my mind, I don't think so. I feel like whatever fate would have come to them, that just would have been it.
So I guess the question really is like, are Asgardian children gods? That's something I was battling with in the theater as well.
I think there's levels. I think if you, okay, I got a couple ways to think about it. So the first way I was thinking about it is, I think if you're just of Asgardian blood, you have an extended life, but it doesn't necessarily mean that like you're a god or have powers. The other thing that just popped in my head too was, but was that connected to being on Asgard? So now that they're on Midgard, now that they're on Earth, does that change anything? Not sure.
I don't think so, because Valkyrie can still do everything she can do, and Axel is still able to do his Heimdall powers.
Yeah, but I also look at that as like they were born on Asgard. So the kids who are now being born on Earth,
oh yeah,
does that change anything? But the whole god status, I think, is very much so lineage. So like if Thor had a biological kid, they'd be a god no matter where they were.
That feels right.
Heimdall's son having powers, that adds up for me. That tracks for me. So I'm not, but everybody else I think is like, because even when Thanos comes through the ship and kills them, like most of them just go down pretty quick. Like you have to be trained up.
Loki.
Good point.
Who's technically not Asgardian, but he's.
Let me sleep on it. I'm sure we'll come back to it.
Okay. I say I like to say that I like to think that. So really, what it is that I would love to think that the one thing about the villains that I like is that they have boundaries. Yeah. They're super focused, but there are also boundaries. Like Zemo, Thanos, even Thanos had like some like guidebook that he was following where like he's just not out here for just straight up destruction, full stop. I mean, yes, he's crazy, but he wasn't just doing things just to do it really, until he got to the end and he was like, I'm actually going to enjoy like squishing your tiny planet, and now everybody has to go. So I would like to think that Gore has that as well, but I think you might be right that the Necro Sword might be swaying that a little bit.
Yeah, and we've seen this in other kind of fantasy stories where like they get this artifact or they get this thing or get their hands on some sort of power, and it kind of goes from like, okay, I have a focus, I have a lane, and then they just get corrupted so much that...
I mean, that's in almost every fantasy story.
Yeah.
I mean, the most famous one being Lord of the Rings.
Yes, right? So
but even in Harry Potter, you get the Elder Wand and like people act up. You get What else is there? Like Game of Thrones, you get dragons and you act up. Like
Yeah, there's always there's always something. So just to touch on the Necrosword real quick, because we definitely are in the era of artifacts. In the MCU, it seems like everybody's got something, whether you're talking about Shang-Chi and his 10 rings, you know, what's her name? Miss Marvel with the bangle. So now we've got this Necrosword, and in the comics, it's more of like a shapeless kind of goo that was created by Null, the god of the symbiotes. Yes, think Venom. And so it's something that's passed down and used to kill gods. And in the movie, it's a relic that's been around since the beginning of time. So the interesting thing is, if y'all saw Eternals, right? So spoiler alert for Eternals, if you didn't see it, you know, fast forward like 10, 15 seconds. But if you saw Eternals, at the end, Dane Whitman gets a sword, the Ebony Blade, which seems to be very similar to the Necro Sword. So it calls out to Gore in the same way the blade calls out to Dane. It also has like this black kind of gooey thing nature about it that's going on, and both swords corrupt the people who possess them and bring out the worst in them. So those swords might be related. So it's going to be interesting how they're going to bring Dane in, what they're going to do with the sword, if they are going to draw any connections. Maybe they'll just leave it alone. But that was an interesting connection that I found between those two artifacts.
Thank you for making that connection, because I think it also primes us to start thinking about what can destroy something of that power, that caliber. So very similar to Harry Potter chasing Horcruxes, and they collect them. What can I use to destroy them? And it's like, you think back, well, I use a Basilisk Fang, so I could probably use that again. And so here we saw the Necrosword being destroyed with Mjolnir. So
yeah,
I think it's a good call out to just remember that. That in general.
Definitely. So we'll see what happens with that, where that comes into play. Any last minute on Gore?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you had like a ranking for MCU villains.
I don't have a ranking per se, but I will say performance-wise, it's up there. He's up there. He's definitely top-notch performance-wise. In terms of just plainly like the character and what he's after, I like it. I'm gonna, again, I wish we had more time to let him breathe.
Yeah, same.
And if we did, I think he would be higher probably on my list. I feel like it's almost unfair to compare him to someone like Thanos, who got a few movies, who got a bunch of mentions, who...
That's a good point. I mean, Infinity War was Thanos's movie.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's tough to compare him to someone like that. But looking at what he was potentially capable of, he's a top-notch villain in my book. What about for you?
I would agree. Definitely up there, top 3 villains probably that we've seen in the MCU so far. It's just the whole nature of like killing gods just feels very like kiddie to me almost, which is why at the beginning when they were like, oh, he's gonna like kill all the gods now, I was like, of course you are, and Thor's a god, and like it just felt very what's the word I'm looking for, like the type of story you tell to a kid before they go to sleep.
He was very boogeyman-esque. Yeah.
It felt very like fairy tale-esque. But boogeyman like to tell a lesson or something like that. So the story and the mission, fine. But like you said, the performance was great. And he was able to execute, and was just swayed by love at the end of it. He would have won. He would have won if he didn't allow Jane to sway him. So there's that. Yeah. But I honestly think, and I just thinking, and now it came to me, I think Zemo's my favorite villain in the MCU, which I know sounds ridiculous to a lot of people. But
Not to me, because you bring him up every time. I know
and you know what it is? It's the respect I have for like the planning that went into it, for
Yeah.
identifying that this was the one thing that was really going to tear the Avengers apart, and the commitment to the plan. He executed it beautifully, like so. And like his plan, usually with intricate plans like that, someone like you are, I'd be like, did he really think that was going to happen? Like, what are the odds? And it was like, no, everything he did felt totally doable in the world that we live in, and that's why he is my
He was a very capable man. That's for
he's so
sure.
capable, like so. And you know what it is too, like low-key, I'm attracted to a man like that. Like, good or evil, can you put together an intricate plan and execute? What? You can have me.
Yeah. That's the real root of it.
This Slytherin will follow your cunning, self-preserving behind anywhere.
We like ambition.
We love ambition. Love an ambitious man. Anyways, moving on.
Jane.
How did you feel about Mighty Thor, aka Jane, aka Dr. Jane Foster, if you're feeling frisky?
Yes, the Mighty Thor. Okay, so first things first, let's take note that Jane was blipped. If anybody was confused, Jane was blipped. Yeah. That's why she thinks it's been like 3 or 4 years since she's seen Thor, when it's really been 8 years, 5 days, 26 hours, whatever. 2 hours. My man's been counting the days. Impressive. Yeah. I just want to throw that out there. Now, when they bring back Jane, we learned that she has stage 4 cancer. She's taking chemo, but her career has been on blessed. You know, she's been out here writing books, winning Nobel Peace Prize, and doing all the things, right? So, okay. I had a few issues.
Do it.
So here were my main things. One, I don't care about Jane. I wish I did. I don't. Even in the first couple of Thors, like, Darcy, I will hang with Darcy all day, every day. If you want to talk about top-notch MCU best friends or something, she's up there. She's like number one for me, right? So Darcy, I will hang with all day. Jane, no. So I didn't care for her. So it's very hard, like, for me to even get back into like, oh, okay, she's in the story and is going to be a main character, right? Then they're kind of like building this whole, or giving us some insight to like what their relationship was or whatever, right? And it's like, yeah, but we didn't see any of that as Infinity War Saga was playing out, or even afterwards. So it's like, and even their original like meeting and love story was like, why are y'all in love? Because the two attractive people in the movie met each other. So to me,
listen, relationships have been forged with less. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Indeed, but for a movie, like, that doesn't work for me. Like Pepper Potts and Tony Stark, like, they built that relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Thor is into Jane because she opened up she encouraged him to be worthy.
Yes. And I get that.
In that sense. And then in her sense, he literally opened up her eyes to a whole new world.
Universe. A whole new world.
Yeah, I was gonna sing it and then I did it. A whole new world. I couldn't remember the next line.
And I'm not saying that love can't be built off those things, but I just don't buy it. I don't buy into it. I don't care for it. I'm not emotionally attached to it. So I'm more attached to his relationship with Mew Mew than I am to her, like, to be honest with you. Right. So, and then I feel like they did the thing where they brought back a woman, made her the primary character just to kill her off. And I was just like, to give the male lead some sort of purpose or finding of himself or something like that. And I was like, why do we keep doing this? Like, if anything, they could have even set it up where like how we had Hawkeye and Kate Bishop, right? Now she's the next Hawkeye, she's the next generation. They could have done that for Jane.
They're not, because I don't think Natalie Portman wants to be affiliated with the MCU anymore. I think I wouldn't be surprised if she was like, fine, I'll come back, but kill me off because I don't want no parts of this anymore. That was why we didn't see her for forever.
Yeah, she was having issues with the MCU and all that stuff. And I get that, but I'm still like, y'all brought her back to kill her off. Like it that just don't sit right with me. It feels like the whole Wanda thing again, where it's like, oh, y'all made her go crazy over losing her kids, and now it's just this deranged mom, and we gotta kill her. Like I don't like where they're going with their female characters. I think that's what's bothering me.
Female characters that are essentially main characters is like really, really the point of this. Like, why are you using them in that way? Jane dying at the end felt inevitable when it happened. You're right. They brought her back just to kill her off, to
make Thor realize he needs to love again.
Yes, but also like they didn't need to bring her, because the way that Thor, like that's what I was sitting here thinking about. Like, did they even need her for him to do that? I don't think so. Because he knew from before he saw her, he was still in love with her, which is why when he saw her, he freaked out. He knew that already.
It could have been the love for his people that unlocked him, or the love for them kids or something like that unlocked him.
Or Jane could have died off screen, and Thor could have went to her funeral and still had the same come to Jesus moment that he had by the end of this movie when she dies in his actual arms. Like, I think you didn't need to see Jane in order for him to get to that point. Yes, her death can still do that, but like you said, they didn't really have to like bring the character on screen back to elicit that emotion. So I think I agree with that a little bit. I'm just gonna say I love the dating montage. I thought it was great. It made me want to watch a like short like he got with Daryl about just them arguing about like what's for dinner. I thought like that was great.
He said, I gotta do the dishes. She said, it's two dishes.
Two plates. It would have been great if she was like, there's a dishwashing machine.
What is that?
Right. It's like, oh wait, you have machines do that for you?
Yes.
Right. So that would be cool. But I do think I agree with I'm not as upset about it, but I think you're right. I think them bringing her back just to kill her is wrong. But also what I'm taking it to the next level is like, it wasn't necessary. You could have done that a different way.
It wasn't necessary. Now, granted, this is the most I've liked Natalie Portman in the MCU, period. So I enjoyed watching her play Mighty Thor. I enjoyed seeing her in her fragile state as she has cancer, but also, as the strong Mighty Thor. And just like, that her career was popping and everything. Like I enjoy watching all of that. And I did like her performance in the movie. But again, it was just like,
I'll also say plot wise, they threw in that her mother had cancer.
Yeah.
Or her mother was sick. And I was just like, you didn't have to do that. First of all, because now you have me with questions like, well, if her mother died from it, why didn't she catch it till it was stage 4?
Why wasn't she getting herself tested and stuff?
Yeah, like, what's up with that? Okay, you're so busy that you let it slip, but it just interjected that piece of information wasn't necessarily necessary to me.
Yeah.
And then you gave me more information that now I have more questions, and I just wouldn't have those questions if you didn't put that in there.
So
yeah.
A theory that was running and that I was buying into for a while before the movie came out was that the ether was possibly what could have gave her cancer, or what could have, messed things up.
That would make sense to me.
And I was actually disappointed to see that they did not go with that. I think that would have been a great way to not only like explain the cancer and maybe why she wasn't even checking for it and why it just kind of snuck up on her and caught her, but then also they could have used that to almost even like alter her power set a little bit, right? So she's not just a copycat of Thor, but she got her own thing going on. Like,
yeah, that would have definitely be interesting if there was something she could do that he couldn't. And he's like, why can you do that? And she's like, I don't know, the ether.
Right.
But I was also going to suggest is that if the ether gave her the cancer, that gives Thor the possibility of feeling responsible for her death.
Mm,
And there's like more of an emotional connection there, obviously,
there's some
right?
more weight to it.
Right, because the ether, like ether is his stuff, so he would obviously feel, somewhat responsible for the ether choosing her. And
Yeah.
then on top of that, Mjolnir is like exasperating the condition because it's draining all our energy. The one thing that also never happened was Thor never connected why Mjolnir even chose Jane. We saw it in the montage how he accidentally enchanted Mjolnir to protect her, but it was I left the movie not understanding if Thor even really understood how Jane was able to wield Mjolnir,
I
besides
think
her just being like, it called to me. Like, I feel like he would have been like, well, why would it call to you? Like, calling to you and you being able to pick it up is two different things.
I think I got the feeling that he understood that something with his love for her and like wanting to.
Okay, maybe I
I,
missed it.
so to me, I think he knew and he understood what it was.
Okay.
But I'm happy that they also explained that because I was like, how did we get here? So I was very happy that they did explain that part of it all.
And it also sets up him giving his powers to the kids later on.
Okay, when we get to nitpicks, I have a little thing about that. But
No, I know, and I put on the nitpicks like that explanation.
Okay. I mean, forget it. We might as well talk about it right now because we're here for it. But I was very because I felt like there was no precedence of him like being able to hand off and share his powers in that kind of way. So that part confused me when it was just like, oh yeah, give these kids my powers temporarily. And I was just like, wait, we can do this now? How is this a thing? Like I didn't understand that part.
I hear you. When I saw him do it, I instantly thought back to the first Thor movie when Odin did it for Thor.
I guess.
Apparently, if you're a god, you can whisper to a magical thing and be like, here, this is what I want you to do for me. And they're like, all right, I'll do that. I will protect Jane. I will give my powers to these kids temporarily.
Yeah.
So they can bust them behind, and I will give whoever is worthy the power of thunder and lightning.
Yeah. All right. Basically. I mean, movies be moving. So
right. I was gonna say, like, yes, I agree. We never saw Thor do it because he could have easily done that
for anybody for on the battlefield.
He could have been like, hey, can you give all 150 Avengers coming up and
all the human non-enhanced ones, all of Wakanda.
All of Wakanda.
He could have said all of Wakanda.
All of Wakanda.
Black Widow.
He could have literally done this like when Thanos like took over the ship of Asgardians. The Asgardians would have whooped Thanos' butt. And he knows he didn't need the hammer because he just realized he didn't need the hammer to fight Hela.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, this movie comes up with plot holes for me about like how the Infinity Saga went down. I have another one later at the end with Eternity. Okay. But this is actually, now that we're talking about this, it's like he could have done that a long time ago. Right. He could have did it in Ultron.
Yep, definitely.
And they wouldn't have all almost died. Like, come on.
So my last thing on Jane was her going to Valhalla. So, all right. And I've had many thoughts and I've had a couple of conversations and stuff or whatever, right? Uh-huh. So when we meet Lady Sif, right, she had fought Gore the God Butcher, lost an arm, and she's basically like dying in this, Antarctica snow-ridden place. And she's like, I'm going to Valhalla. It'll be great. And Thor is like, no, you're not. Like, you didn't die in battle. Like, that's not how any of this works, which is fine, right? Cool. You just set up the rules. Awesome. Love it. Now we get to Jane, who goes to battle, right? Yeah. She's already been told, hey, if you pick Mew up one more time, you're going to die. Like, that's just what it is. She picks him up, transforms, fights, They get to eternity and he's holding her in his arms and she's
Yes.
dying, but
Yes.
not dead, but
Yes.
she gets to go to Valhalla.
Yeah.
So in some of my arguments that I've had with some people, the points have been raised.
That Thor didn't know what he was talking about?
No.
Oh, because I was like, oh, Thor doesn't know what he's talking about. Great. That tracks.
Because I was immediately like, we're already breaking the rules that we set, right? Their point was Sif did not receive a mortal wound, like getting your arm cut off, which I was like, there's arteries in
That's
there.
a good point.
Saying that.
But she's also Asgardian.
Right. So I'm like, okay, if we're going by, even if with that, fine. She didn't receive a mortal wound. She's more so dying from the cold, maybe more than anything. Okay, so then we're basically going with the rule that you have to receive a mortal blow in battle to die, or you have to literally die on the sword, right? So to speak. That still did not quite happen for Jane.
You're right. You're correct.
But the point that these people raised was her picking up Mjolnir that last time, giving that strike, that final blow at the end that defeats the Necrosword. That was the fatal blow, so to speak. I've also seen in other places where they've tried to like reason it as like, well, she didn't die in like actual physical battle, but she was in a mental battle of trying to win over Gore and get him to see love is the way. And I was like, no, I'm not buying that. We're not going with that. Like, y'all talk about it as in wartime, as in fighting, because then if that was the case, anytime that they've tried to like reason with other leaders or something like that, if they died in that, or I don't know, right after that or something, they should have been going to Valhalla as well. So I'm just saying, I wish it was clearer. Justice for justice for ladies. Okay, even though she lives, but still.
I have three comments. One, I understand and respect your stance on this. And I appreciate you going hard because rules matter. Rules absolutely matter. Rules of the world matter. Now, I thought it was one of two things. One, like I've said, either Thor got it wrong. Like maybe Thor just doesn't understand the rules of Valhalla because he's never been there, obviously. And the stories tell him, all the fables tell him, you have to die in battle in order to make it there. Obviously, there's plenty of propaganda that can support why they would say that, right? As a reason to get people to want to go into battle. If you go into battle, you'll make it to Valhalla. Great. When in reality, it could be that is not the actual rule, and the rules are either looser or everyone makes it to Valhalla, which is what I think is probably most likely, is that everyone makes it there. Everyone makes it. Now, if that's not the case, then the other explanation I was holding in my head was they made an exception for the white woman, like they always do, right? Like, so she failed upwards. And because she had such a tight relationship with Thor, or because Thor was in love with her, like she's kind of Asgardian tangential as you're gonna get.
Right. She's not even full Asgardian. Like
she's not. But what I'm suggesting is that if Loki is in Valhalla, then I can see why she would be there. Because Loki's not Asgardian.
He's not.
He's just straight up not. He's like, okay, he's the closest you get to that, but she's like a close second, in my opinion.
Okay, so I'll even put it this way though, right? He may not be Asgardian by blood, but he is by
he's Odin's son. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So yeah. I will even accept that. She just got there yesterday.
No, she was there during Thor 2.
She popped in on Asgard and left. And then she's been doing her thing on Earth for a minute. And then
the god of Asgard has been in love with her for over 10 years. Listen, she failed upwards is what happened. Like, let's just call it. They made an exception for her. I really wish Heimdall was going to say, like, I guess. Or maybe, you know what? Maybe it's because she helped save the Asgardian kids, because he said, thank you for helping my son. Maybe Heimdall made the exception. I don't know.
I also want to throw out there that in the comics, she does make it to Valhalla, but she rejects that afterworld and that afterlife and decides to become a Valkyrie.
Nah, I'm chilling in
So
Valhalla. There's no way. No, I'm chilling in Valhalla, drinking wine, eating grapes, looking for Loki so I can punch him in the face. I'm gonna go find Thor's mom so we can chill because she looked like she could have a good time.
Frigga, yeah, Frigga look like
Frigga,
a good
yeah,
time.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm chilling. I know.
Man,
Valkyrie, no.
I guess, but that's my rant. I guess one of the few
Anyways,
rants I've had. Speaking of Valkyries,
speaking of Valkyrie,
let's round out our group with Valkyrie and Korg, right? And almost shameful that we have to group them both together and just put them in one little box because guess what? Valkyrie didn't have much to do in this movie, which is very, very unfortunate. Like I said at the top of the pod, like I was happy to be back with Valkyrie. I wanted to see this whole transformation of her going from warrior to king and all that kind of stuff. And I have to say, I was very, first of all, she's got a whole bunch of emotional stuff going on that I want more time with her. I want so much more time with her, and I wish we could get that. But then I was also very, very surprised that at that final battle that she did not go with Thor to fight Gore and to save the kids. And I tried to reckon with it in terms of like, okay, she's trying to balance her warrior life with her king life. And so it's like, I could go into battle, but I'm probably going to die. And if I die, who's going to lead the people? But then like, if we just talked about making it to Valhalla and all that stuff and how this is so ingrained in the people and in the warriors that it surprises me that she wasn't like, one last battle. Yeah. You know, like if I die, I die kind of thing.
If I die, I die. You know, to your point about her having to balance being king, I wish she would have. I don't think she said that. Well, someone has to lead the people. Even if he was like, "You're not coming," and she's like, "Asgard needs a king."
Yeah,
like that would have been
that
enough
line
for me, right? They absolutely needed that line. To your point, Valkyrie got way more emotional screen time in Ragnarok. Like she did way more in Ragnarok than she did here, which just feels like you said shortchanged. Like she could have done so much more.
Yeah.
So much more. Even when they were like fighting Zeus, like she came down and was like badass when she started fighting, but she's a king in her own right. I was expecting her to like come down and like say something to Zeus. Like she could have. I just felt like she could have did so much more. I would have loved to see her actually like being some level of romantic with someone in New Asgard. Like she kissed one of Zeus's like right hand women or whatever. But like it would have been cool if she was like checking somebody out in like New Asgard. If like there was some other girl who was just like, you know, you coming over later, right? And she'd be like, I'll see, you know, king shit. Whatever.
It wasn't like, gay enough for you.
Right. It's not gay enough. It's just that I want her to have a love interest. If this is Love and Thunder, Korg got a whole like storyline of him falling in love or doing whatever. And she didn't. And that just everybody else did and she did not. And that just feels so odd to me. Just like her mentioning it's hard to find a girlfriend or whatever is not enough for me. I want to like see her in it.
Yeah. And I think that plays to what we were talking about earlier with Jane, where it's like, I get it. It's Thor's movie. We here with Thor, but it's like you have these strong female figures. Like you said, Valkyrie is a king in her. She is the king of Asgard. Like, yes, it should have been her talking to Zeus. You're right. Like, why is she? But like, then it's like Thor comes around and she almost shrinks in Thor's shadow. Like, even when they were addressing the town after the kids were taken, she's trying to calm everybody down. And then here comes Thor, is like, hello, everyone. We need to calm down. And he doesn't even have anything eloquent or smart to say, but everybody stops to listen to him. And like ignores the woman who's been leading them this whole time, the one who did not leave and go off planet to have her own side adventures, you know, and
I really expected there to come a point where Valkyrie is like, who is king here?
Yes.
You made me king. And I like, it would have been totally on brand. It would have been easy for them to write that in, for Thor to do something or say something stupid, for Valkyrie to be like, we're not doing that. And Thor would be like, well, yes, we are. I'm more powerful. And for her to be like, you're not the king. I am. We do this
Yes.
my way.
Yes.
It would have been totally easy to do that. And they didn't do that. And it's infuriating.
It's infuriating because in Ragnarok, she acted more like a king than she did here.
She did.
She was like, she was not taking any of Thor's bullcrap. She was like zapping him all the time. She was doing her own thing. And so to me, it's wild.
And he was king then. And she was like, no. He was actually the rightful king then. And nope.
Major eye roll. Very disappointed.
Very, very disappointed. I hope she's back whenever Thor comes back, or whenever anyone comes back. I hope she's around. Yeah. And then separately, with Korg is back. He's great. He's kind of, I think Korg plays the avatar for the audience the most out of anyone in this movie, probably. I love the meta commentary that the director of the movie is the voice of Korg, and he is the one giving the voice over for what's happening in the movie.
Yeah, giving the story.
This is what happened with Thor. This is what happened. This is what happens at the end, whatever. So I thought that was great. We learned about Korg that all of his brain is in his face, so all he needs is his face in order to.
And he can regrow his body.
He can regrow his body.
He learned how babies are made.
Babies are made. So apparently all of Korg's people are all male gendered.
Yeah.
So you fall in love with another Korg, it's another male Korg, and basically you go into, I don't know if he said you go into a cave, but basically you hold hands over.
And you stand in like lava or something.
Yeah, like over a fire for a month, which is a long time to be holding somebody's hand. And after the month, you have a little baby Korg, basically. And we see him get to realize that with his new partner Dwayne at the end of the.
I mean, it's less work than becoming an animagus, so.
It is less work. Same amount of time, but less work. You're absolutely right.
You just got to hold hands for a little bit.
A little bit, a month. But you got to keep that leaf under your tongue for a month too.
Yeah.
So that's actually a little bit harder. You're right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we got to see that, which was great. Korg was great, comedic. Even though the entire movie was comedy, Korg was great, comedic levity. And he did have like so much of a storyline per se, but it was nice to see him fall in love at the end of it. And then like to that point, the other thing I wanted to mention was just the LGBTQ representation in the movie. Totally. So now we have in the MCU canon that Valkyrie is into women, same sex, and Korg, his whole species is just all one sex and they reproduce, so they figured it out.
Yeah.
Do you think it was enough LGBTQ representation in this movie? Like, do you think they went deep enough, or do you think it was like fine?
Like I said, because Valkyrie is part of that representation and she is so underused in this movie, there's no way to get it. Because even like, I thought that they were gonna even put in, maybe she has a little crush on Jane, because she knows about Jane's cancer and it like goes to check in on her and all this kind of stuff. And she's like, no, don't tell anybody. And she's like, I got you, girl. And I was like,
kind of alluded to it. They kind of alluded to it when Thor and when they were walking up to Omnipotent City, and Thor and Valkyrie was just like, you still like her, and he's just like, oh, whatever, like blowing it off. And something happened where he was like, we're on the same team. And she's like, yeah, Team Jane.
Yeah.
So I thought she was alluding to it.
So I felt like if they have, it was a little too subtext for me. Yeah. I needed it full force in your face a little bit more.
At the minimum, I wouldn't say that she was probably in love with Jane or even like liked her, but just like light flirting, I think would have been dope. Like if she was just like, do a good job and we'll come back and I'll show you a good time. Like even just like outwardly hitting on Jane, I think would have been cute to see. But I think, even if it was playfully.
Yeah, I think it's just the MCU problem as a whole, where it's like, oh, we'll give you these little bits and pieces of representation, but there's never a full story. So if you're not going to go all the way through, and except for Eternals, but if you're not going to go all the way through with it, then to me, it's just like, it feels like it's like scraps. It's like, here you go. You're happy now, right? Cool.
Yeah. No.
yeah, it's not enough. It doesn't do anything for me. It's kind of like when they just throw in a person of color just to be a bestie or something like that, and they
You
don't
mean
really
like all the sidekicks in when the MCU
right.
first started?
Right, and they don't do anything, and it's just like,
Right,
okay, you put a
right.
black person in there, but am I supposed to care? Am I supposed to be happy? Like,
Falcon, Rhodey.
right.
Who else?
It took
I'm
so
blanking.
long
It's
for
a
those,
lot.
but it took so long for those characters to even become significantly part of the MCU and stuff. So is it nice to have? Sure, I almost want to say it's better than nothing, but if you're not really going to flesh it out or do anything with it, I don't. It does nothing.
Yeah, and I almost think it's, and then we'll move on. I agree that it's better than nothing. They're putting it in more movies. Like there's a trajectory, right? Like it was in
Mhm.
Eternals pretty blatantly, but like it's again not like fully fleshed out as much as they probably could have. But there was like 15 million main characters in that movie, so I get it. Um, and then with this one, they had a huge opportunity to do it with Valkyrie, and they chose not to. I also was thinking, so I didn't write it, but if I did, this is what I would change. I would make Korg genderless.
Okay.
Like genderless in the sense of just like no male or female. And they can like, maybe his entire like species is just genderless. And that gives us that's just, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's probably different than whatever's in the comics, but I thought that would probably be a neat way to touch on transgender individuals who don't identify with the gender at all or identify with a different gender or one of those things. Not to say that it takes an alien to do that. Like I don't want to offend anyone either, but that felt like a really easy way to do that because it's like we're trying to. It feels like Disney is definitely trying to catch up with the times. It's like we've moved on. We're so way far past trying to get just like same-sex couples on screen. Like you should have been doing this already.
Yeah.
Now you also need to start thinking about, or should have already been thinking about, the transgender movement and all these other type of tangential things to same sex and just general LGBTQ representation. I felt like Thor could have been a simple way to do that wasn't super jarring for the audience at large. I think it would have been really easy to just sneak it
Possibly.
in a deliberate way. But anyways, let's move on. We've been
Yeah.
talking for a while. Let's wrap this up. So let's get to nitpicks and highlights. So let's do highlights.
Okay. So, I one of my major highlights was when, well, first of all, anytime Chris Hemsworth takes his clothes off. Highlight.
Do we think that was a butt double?
Nah, I think that was him.
You think that was him?
It better have been him. I'd be really upset
him.
if it wasn't.
I don't think it was him. He makes too much money. He doesn't need to show his butt on the screen. He could easily get a butt double for that.
For Taika. For Taika, I think he would. I think he'd do it. But if you look at his back, he's got an RIP Loki tattoo on there, which was awesome and amazing to see. So that was really fun. It says rest in mischief. And it also had me missing the fact that Loki wasn't in the movie. Like I was like, damn, he's not gonna make a little cameo, something. Tie this all together for us, y'all. Where's Kang? Yeah, so that was my major thing. I think the music was awesome in the movie. It was a fun time. You had more highlights than I did, so I'm gonna let you go.
I love them bringing the play back. I'm gonna call them playmakers back. Matt Damon as Loki, Luke Hemsworth, Kristen Liam's older brother as Thor, and they had Melissa McCarthy as Hela, which was hilarious.
The love best. That. When she popped out, I was like, this is amazing. This is awesome.
It was so good. That was good. And they even gave Matt Damon like another line later on, like, can we write a play about this? Like, I didn't say no, let's do this. Like that was super fun to see them. Another highlight for me was just Heimdall's son Axel. Like that felt like the gift I didn't know I wanted in this movie. It
was also the gift that came out of nowhere.
No, that's what I'm saying. It came out of nowhere, and normally when stuff like that happens, it bothers me. But I was like, this is good.
Yeah,
this I like. I love the actor who played his son. I like that he has Heimdall-esque characteristics and powers. I
Yeah.
love that we'll get to see him grow through
Mm-hmm.
this, and I'm sure, hopefully, he has a role to play later on. Hopefully, he's better at it than his father was. But
It looks like he's
um,
taking his place because when he uses Stormbreaker to bring the kids back, I was like, I thought you didn't know how to use your powers, but
listen,
he's a fast learner.
yeah, and he should be technically. You're right. He should have the power to bring the Bifrost, Heimdall did. So you're right. So yeah, that was a highlight for me. And then lastly, when I found out after the movie that Love, the daughter of Gore, the God Butcher, is actually played by Chris Hemsworth's daughter, India. That was
Mm-hmm.
very interesting to me, and just gave me a different perspective on the final scene of them together with him trying to make her eat pancakes and put on her boots.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Aw, that's probably
Very
how that
sweet.
goes in their household. That's like super sweet." So
Very
those
sweet.
are my highlights.
Yeah, and you also mentioned in our outline too that a lot of the kids of the major players in the movie are in the movie. So we have Natalie Portman's kids, we have Thor's kids in there, Taika Waititi's kids are in there. So, you know, when you guys do, well, hopefully, well, maybe you guys will rewatch the movie. But if you do, you know, take a look at the credits and everything. You can see like where all the kids line up and who was playing whom. So go back and check that. It's a fun little, you know, a little game to play as you rewatch
Yeah.
the movie. All
Yeah.
right, nitpicks.
I have one major nitpick for the
Go
plot
for
of
it.
this movie. Eternity.
Mm-hmm.
Two things. One, I need more rules in this world around entities who are outside of universes.
Mm-hmm.
Where do they reside? Are they all aware of each other? Because it's eternity to me seems like the place and I guess the God itself, right? Because you're asking eternity
So
for
eternity is a god. So it's not
eternity.
even a place, but it is.
It is and it isn't. Yeah, because I felt like that was being like interchangeable in the movie. So
Yeah.
that's one. But Gore acts this entity for something, so it's a sentient being in some sense, right? Um, where does eternity reside, and is it the same place a person like Kane or the Watcher would reside? Just understanding the physical dynamics of where people are existing or entities are existing is a question that came up when I was watching it.
Mm-hmm.
But secondly, the thing that really bothers me is like if Thanos and Valkyrie and there are people out here who knew eternity existed, why wasn't that part of the Infinity Saga plotline?
Okay.
As a possible, either as a means to an end for Thanos to use it to instead of using the Infinity Stones, or after Thanos uses the Infinity Stones to bring everybody back and kill Thanos.
Okay, so I think a major part of that was that they needed the key or whatever to get to eternity. So they didn't have that until they had Stormbreaker.
Right.
So I think that plays a major role in it.
But they had that in Infinity War. At the end of the Infinity War, they had Stormbreaker.
But I think also just having the imminent threat of Thanos right there. Well, I guess you could argue
it's really Endgame. I'm
for
arguing
Endgame. Yeah, I was gonna say you
right?
can argue for Endgame instead of going back in time. They could have went.
Thor has this knowledge. He has Stormbreaker. So even if he didn't know he needed a key, he already had it and didn't know it. He knew eternity existed, and he was the one kind of the most messed up about not defeating Thanos and wanting to defeat him and bring everybody back. It just feels like that Thor had all the pieces to use this information and he just didn't.
Maybe he was too depressed. Think about
maybe.
I don't know.
We can always give explanations.
We can always, yeah. I think. I mean, at the end of the day, the MCU wasn't ready to introduce those type of characters. But to your question, are they aware of each other? In the comics, at least they are. They're part of like the original beings. So there's people like Eternity, Infinity, Death. Basically, all the things that we think of as concepts are like actual beings that are there.
The other thing I was expecting, so are you aware of like in the Guardians 1 and Guardians 2, the directors or the producers or someone said that they put clues in those movies to something bigger and greater, basically in all the coordinates that you
Yeah.
see in Guardians 1 and 2. And essentially, someone figured it out that those coordinates are alluding to potentially Star-Lord's mother being Eternity, I think it was. It might have been Infinity. It was one of them.
So yeah, okay, but like, because in the first Guardians, right, when he holds the stone, he's like, I see eternity, right? So there was those kind of theories going around like, oh, is he talking about like the being eternity? Could that be his
Right.
mother? That whole
Right.
kind of thing. But then now, I mean, now that we've gotten Guardians 2, I'm kind of like, does that even still add up? Because if we know his dad is
It
Ego,
does.
and it still gives us the whole story of like that was his mother, like his mother was human and Ego was his dad. So it's like, does that even still play or matter at this
That's
point?
that's a good point, except that the producers act whoever it was that was in, that was confirming that there were clues, pretty much confirmed that those clues were correct.
Mm-hmm.
That there's some level of linkage between Eternity and Star-Lord's mother.
Yeah.
So that was, in my opinion, that was confirmed. And so when they mentioned Eternity in this movie, I was like, oh snap, we're gonna see Star-Lord's mom or like something related to her in this movie. And I thought it would make sense, especially because Star-Lord was it was in the beginning of the movie or whatever. But it obviously didn't play out that way. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
it can't still play out that way. But that was the other thing about Eternity that I was kind of like holding out to see if they would actually do.
Okay, quick tangent. But then the thing is, right, if your mom is Eternity and your dad is Ego, why do you not have any powers? Why haven't we seen Star-Lord use any powers since he's left the planet Ego? Like, where did all of that go?
Yeah, so they explained his powers from Ego. One, he didn't know he had them, so he couldn't activate them. And then they explained that when Ego died, all the powers associated with Ego also died, right?
I guess.
And I feel like with Eternity, they can easily do something cheesy, like Star-Lord has this like power of love or some BS
He's
like
gonna
that. I
meet
don't know.
love.
Yeah,
And
like I
she's
don't know.
gonna activate
Something
it for him.
maybe,
Because now she's
maybe,
got the power of eternity in her.
yeah, maybe she does activate
Yes.
something. And then the whole cancer, obviously cancer is awful. I have people in my family, including my mother, who passed away from cancer. Cancer's all over the place. People catch it all, are diagnosed with it all the time. But them using cancer for Jane, I feel like was a deliberate callback to Star-Lord's mom. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking into it too much,
Yeah,
but
to me, I don't see it that way because I know it was a comic book run. So it's just like, you know,
got it. Okay, yeah, I
uh,
didn't have that context.
yeah. So they're pulling from a certain comic book run where she does have cancer. And every time she transforms into Thor, like it makes her sicker and sicker until she actually dies. So yeah, I don't make that connection.
Well, if they ever do bring Star-Lord's mom back in some capacity, remember you heard it here first.
Yep.
So just
There
gonna
you
put
go.
that out there. And
Right.
then the only other, I mentioned the no character development for Thor. We won't go back into that, but
Mm-hmm.
I am still annoyed that we don't have any inclination of who our next team is going to be, or confirmation that Kane, at the minimum, is the next big bad that we're
Yeah.
moving towards. So that was
Um,
disappointing for me.
it's tough because, and I think we talked about this in previous pods, but the universe is getting bigger and bigger, and there's you know people with or beings with greater powers. Even when we go to the omnipotent
Yeah,
palace or whatever,
there's the whole
there's
like
celestials there.
dumpling god named Bao. There were celestials there.
Yes, if you look behind Zeus, there were
Mm-hmm.
two celestials in the background
Oh yeah.
chilling. So I'm just like, okay, so there's just so many ways that it could go. I've heard Doctor Doom being thrown around. I've heard Kang. I've heard we're gonna have a whole battle world thing and
Secret Wars. Yeah.
Secret Wars. So I don't know. I don't know where we're going.
So yeah, just until I get that, that's always gonna be an
But I
area.
think after this movie, I've been even more on your side of like, okay, wrap it up, y'all. Where are we going? Tell us what's happening. We're 6 movies in, 6 or 7 TV shows in.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening here? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Like phase 4 is stretching out like a mother. Like it's phase
stressing
4
me
is,
out.
no, it's just a lot of content in phase 4, especially with the addition. We're already 6 movies into phase 4. I want to say phase 3 might have been 7 movies total, 7, maybe 8.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't have all of these TV shows. WandaVision, Captain America, A Falcon and Winter Soldier. What was after that? Loki, then Hawkeye, Miss Marvel. We have She-Hulk. We'll have Moon Knight.
Yeah.
There's just so much.
There's a lot. All right.
What if 1 and what if season 2 is coming?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Talk about world building and like expanding the universe. What if is literally that's the point of that show.
The whole point. Yeah. All right. Back to nitpicks. So a couple nitpicks I had. I gotta say it. Axel, yo. Not the character himself, not even the fact that we didn't know Heimdall had a lady or a kid or whatever. I'm not worried about that. It's the fact that Uncle Thor is out here claiming kids of a god butcher, but his alleged best friend, right? His words, my best friend Heimdall is dead. His alleged best friend, you wasn't out here taking care of Heimdall's kid? You wasn't checking in? You wasn't looking for him? Did you even say, do you know his birthday? Like, I need to know these things. Why are you not Uncle Thor to him, but all of a sudden you got this niece and you going on adventures with her and stuff like that? That part bothered me. I'm not saying it's because he's black, but I'm not saying it's because he's not black. So I was just like, you're supposed to be out here taking care of nephew and you not. And that was a nitpick for me. That really bothered me.
Yeah, I guess there's something about like we don't know how often Thor checked in to New Asgard.
My point is
the way they portrayed it is that he hasn't been there since he left with the Guardians.
Right.
That's how they portrayed it. But also I'm thinking like Axel had a whole black mom.
Yep.
And it's like if I'm that boy's mom, can I go hang out with Uncle Thor? No, you may not.
No, you can't. But
oh, you may not.
You absolutely cannot hang out with Uncle Thor. But my whole thing was like, and this was a nitpick for me too, like when Heimdall did die, that all of a sudden Thor was like my best friend. And I was like, since when? Y'all are work associates at best. Like, let's not do that. You know what I mean? So like, so now to go from, oh, my best friend died to you ain't never even checked on his kid, that bothers me in my soul, but that's just me.
I mean, which is why Axel was just like, what did Thor call him? What was his birth name? Axel's birth name?
I think Astrid.
Astrid. He's like, Astrid. He's like, it's Axel. Astrid. Your father named you Astrid? I'm gonna call you Astrid. He's like, you could talk to somebody else named Astrid. My name is Axel. What do you want to do?
Let's move on.
Let's move on. And you're right. If he was his uncle for real, they would already have that bond or something.
Exactly. Exactly. Shame, he dropped the ball. Mm-hmm. Your homeboy died. You didn't take care of his seed. I don't like that. So the next one that I had, which you have a rebuttal to, I love that. So it was maybe less of a nitpick, more of a question, was when Thor gives his powers temporarily to the kids, how does that work? I feel like there was no precedence for that. I felt like that could have happened in earlier movies if that was really the case. What was the issue with that? Like, what was going on with that?
Yeah, and I mentioned when we mentioned it a couple of topics ago that like we saw him whisper to Mjolnir to protect Jane, and we saw Odin do it when he was like, anyone who's worthy will have the powers of Thor, the powers of thunder or whatever. Yeah. So we've seen it happen before. We just never seen Thor do it. And again, it brings the question of why wasn't he doing this before in the fight against Thanos? So I agree that the nitpick is more so like, if Thor knew he could do this, why hasn't he done it before? Is really the question.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I mean, I wonder if so just real quick, because I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, because now I'm thinking like at the end of the movie, we see that Love has Stormbreaker, right? And she's using it. Mjolnir has the whole like you have to be worthy in order to pick her up. Stormbreaker, I'm guessing, does not, clearly, because even Gore the God Butcher used it. Vanessa and I listened to a podcast called The Midnight Boys, and they were kind of going back and forth about just Mjolnir and Stormbreaker. And if the ex-girlfriend comes back, who would you go with, basically? Like, who would you choose? Mjolnir or Stormbreaker? And I thought it was an interesting thought experiment. And I wanted to ask you your thoughts. Like, if Mjolnir came back, would you choose Mjolnir or would you stick with Stormbreaker?
I'm going Stormbreaker all day. I'm chopping heads. We're opening Bifrosts. I'm going.
One of the arguments is that Stormbreaker be for everybody. And Mjolnir not, because you gotta be of a certain quality to get with Mjolnir. I just thought the conversation was really interesting.
I countered that with, you could put a spell on it.
On Stormbreaker, you could.
If it's as simple as like a god whispering into the delicate ear of your weapon and be like,
all right. You're right.
We go together now.
Yeah,
like
you're right.
I think you could just do that and that'll be it, you know.
I'm totally sticking with Stormbreaker. There's no way I'm going back.
Yeah, no. Although I will say it's cool now that Mjolnir can like break apart almost.
Oh, that was cool.
Yeah, and like basically buckshot everybody and then come back together. That was kind of awesome. That was a new trick she had learned. Old Faithful knew a little new trick, you know. She out here hanging out with the young girls. She done learned a new trick. So I'm not mad at that, but I gotta go Stormbreaker.
I'm sticking with Stormbreaker too. Like Bifrost is like super useful.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
anyways. I just thought I would ask your opinion on that because I thought that was funny. All right, so to wrap up, what do we think? Okay, so what's happening next in the MCU, right? So we have some shows coming up: She-Hulk, What If Season 2, and Secret Invasion are the shows that they've guaranteed, or that are coming out by the end of 2022. She-Hulk has a date, I believe it's August 17th. We don't have a date yet for What If Season 2 or Secret Invasion. And then separately, Wakanda Forever is coming out in November. I can't wait to see what that is going to be like. Who is the new Black Panther? I think it's going to be M'Baku. I heard through the grapevine they might be bringing Killmonger back. So because there's no way he died. Like, he's in Wakanda. They can save whatever. There's no way he let
Killmonger die, but whatever.
I agree with letting him die. I'm just saying, like, the rules of the world exist as such that he probably didn't die.
Could come back.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, and then we have Guardians Holiday Special, which I don't know if that's going to be a show or like a 1 hour thing or a half an hour thing. Not sure how that's going to pan out, but these are the things happening by the end of 2022 in the MCU. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say really quick, I'm just praying by the end of 2022 we know who our big bad is and where we're going.
So if anyone, I mean, we've also been watching Miss Marvel. I actually need to catch up on the last 2 episodes because the last one airs this week. I heard somewhere that by the end of Miss Marvel, we'll have more clarity on something. So I don't know. This is all hearsay. Who knows? Again, by the end of 2022, if I don't know what the next team up movie is, or just team in general, or at least who the big bad villain is that they need to defeat, I'm going to be infuriated. And it's, you know what it is? You know how I feel about MCU right now?
Get it off your chest.
It feels like I've been dating someone and now the energy has changed.
Ooh. And
it's beginning to become a little inconsistent. And now I'm at a point where I'm just like, I like this person too much. I may need to back off in order to save myself from extended disappointment. It's I feel like I feel like right now I'm like into the MCU because of the potential and not because of what they've been giving me.
You're at the fork in the road where you're like, we have so much history. Do we keep going and make this relationship work? Or do I cut my losses and save myself the potential heartbreak?
It's almost like, we've been through this for a while and it's been great. We had a great couple of years together. But ever since like we had our like amazing honeymoon, so to speak, the energy has changed.
AKA
I
Endgame.
end game. The energy has changed.
After we got married, things are different.
Things are different now. And it's like I keep waiting for that date night or just our anniversary or just something that's gonna like bring that spark back. And don't get me wrong, it's not bad. It's still good, but I'm still chasing the high of us being on our honeymoon. And now I'm at the point where it's like, should I just give up on that dream? And I'm not saying I want to break up with you and like get a divorce or just break up with you, but I am saying that maybe I need to downgrade where our relationship might be in your head.
Oh right? Man, is this the talk? Like, I feel like I'm the guy, and I'm just like, oh, wait.
Oh, you think I haven't had these conversations before? Please, excuse me, that don't feel right. Something happened, you're not telling me, and then 3 months later, it's like, oh, you met another girl. Like, I get that. Fine, you could have just told me, but fine. Anyways, that's where I'm at, where it's just like, I need to adjust my expectations. And we talk about this all the time. We expect so much of the MCU now, but I'm at the point where I do think I need to start treating the MCU as the MCU's been treating me. And good movies, great movies, but until they prove themselves worthy again, I think I'm just gonna, you know, like for example, anything MCU drops, I automatically watch. Like there's no question. I might start questioning whether or not I'm gonna go watch things and wait for reviews before I step out. Like that's the difference in like my interaction with the MCU that I'm debating now.
I think that'll happen with me with the shows versus the movies, because I already have not watched Moon Knight. So
I didn't watch Moon Knight either.
Yeah. So I mean, it's coming to that place where it's like y'all are putting so much content out, and isolated, the content is good, but like you said, I think we've been trained that this is all supposed to lead up to something, right? And like to kind of come back to Miss Marvel, like I'm expecting Brie Larson to show up in the finale. I'm expecting Carol Danvers.
You're asking a lot.
I think she's gonna come because then they're supposed to pop up. Oh, okay. Maybe
if we're gonna see any of them, I feel like it'd be Monica before Carol Danvers. But go ahead.
Yeah, I'm still gonna, just to hold on to my gut, I'm gonna stick with Carol Danvers. I think we're gonna see Carol Danvers pop up, and you know, we know that Miss Marvel is gonna be in the Marvels movie, so I guess that's technically our next team up that we know of.
Good point.
Good point. We still don't know where that's going, but again, we've got artifacts, we got cosmic artifacts, we're learning about new dimensions, all these other things. I don't know. I'm just hoping wherever the MCU goes next, they start tying all these loose ends together and start streamlining whatever the plot of this thing is, because I think that's what they do the best.
Yes.
But I mean, if you're going to go down this route of we're just putting content to put out content, I feel like let it be known. Stop making us think that everything is going, like Moon Knight, when it came out, the directors and creators, everybody said, Moon Knight lives in its own thing. Don't think about anything else. It is its own project. This is what it is. And I'm okay with that. But if that's what it's going to be, say that, give us that warning for everything else. But when it comes to these movies, y'all gotta pull it together. Yeah.
At the minimum, someone should be like, why is there a celestial's head sticking out the ocean? I'm gonna bring this up every single episode until somebody addresses it.
What implications did Cap have for going back? What did that do? Where's the TVA? Where's Kang? All of it. I don't know.
How did Biden Cap get back on the Avengers facility without anybody seeing him?
It's always gonna be a problem. It's on site.
Where is Falcon right now? Is he out here doing Captain America stuff? Is Bucky back in Wakanda or dating a black girl somewhere? He probably is. I want to know.
Listen, if I was Bucky, I would go back to Wakanda too. I don't blame him.
I wouldn't leave. Where's Albino Vision?
Out here somewhere. Just not popping up in Multiverse of Madness. That's
we have super powerful people that they've purposely introduced to us in the past year and a half, 2 years, that we're just supposed to act like doesn't exist anymore. It just makes no sense to me.
I don't know.
Especially because we know that they're around. So like the US government lost albino, like, why is no one talking about this? He just flew away.
Listen, I don't know.
He has all of Vision's memories now.
He does.
And he just flew away. Valentina, what is she up to? What's she doing?
Fury doing?
What Fury's off world somewhere.
Yep.
We don't know what he's doing. We know a Skrull came up and talked to Monica Rambeau, so we think that I think they might be together doing something right now.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Right? Like, it's just, I'm trying to think of what other things we saw.
So many.
I'm not even gonna touch Doctor Strange and Spider-Man.
So many.
There's just so much. Like,
yeah, but I mean, I'm still here for the ride. I don't know where it's going. We're on this road trip with no real destination. I like direct flights, but you know.
So here's a question, and then we'll really go. So when it comes to what's coming up next for the MCU by the end of the year,
yeah,
are you automatically watching everything, or are you going to be more selective?
I'm going to be selective in terms of the shows, but the movies, I'm watching it all. I'll take my time on the shows. Like Moon Knight, I'll get to it when I get to it.
I don't even know if I'm going to tap in for She-Hulk. Like, I feel like we have to because it's a female character. I'm just going to be honest. This CGI is not calling me to it. I'll probably sit through the first episode, but
I'm hoping the CGI will be better by the actual release time.
I doubt it.
But I don't think it's that bad. It's TV, y'all. I don't think it's that bad.
She's not growing to the size of the Hulk.
Maybe she's just turning green. I don't know.
She's just Gamora. Right? Come on.
She's just a pumped up Gamora.
Anyways, we'll figure it out. I'm definitely going to see Wakanda Forever. I'm definitely tuning into What If season 2. I will sit down for the Guardians holiday special, and I'm going to watch Secret Invasion because I feel like we're going to get Fury in that, and I want to see Fury.
Yeah, we need Fury back. Fury was steering the ship. Now that he's not here, bring the black man back. Put him in power.
So even before we got the team up movie or the big bad, Fury was the thing that connected everyone.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Now we don't have that. No. Oh, that's a good point.
Fury wasn't in Thor, but Coulson was. And Coulson was in Fury was in Captain America at the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see, man. We're definitely over our time. But this is how we get, you know, we rant and rave about these things, and we go deep into these, and we love talking about it. But thanks for joining us. Make sure you guys follow us on all our socials, Casual Fangirls _ we're definitely doing our best to put out more content to bring to the people. So engage with us, talk to us, send us your questions, comments, concerns, anything. Let us know. Are you picking Stormbreaker or Mjolnir? You know, who are you into? Did you guys like this movie? Was it fun for you? Did y'all have any issues that we had? Let us all know. Comment, like, subscribe, do all of the things. I'm Nessa.
And I'm T.
And together we are the Casual Fangirls. See you guys next time.